Hey everyone, thank you for watching. Today I'm going to show you how to draw a hand with fingers pointing upwards. So grab your pencils and let's get drawing. First things first, the position I'm going to draw is like this. So if the hand was out and the arm was out and the hand was up from this perspective. So the challenge with this is how do you draw all these fingers when they're overlapping on top of each other? You know, is one finger like this, is one like that? That's what we're going to show you. So first things first, you want to draw the arm and just get that arm out as quick as possible. You tend to have this indentation over here, and the palm usually sits underneath, and you have your thumb over here. Okay, and then you tend to have the index finger over here. Okay, followed by the middle finger, which is a bit longer than the index finger. Okay. The ring finger is shorter than the middle finger, so it kind of sits behind, just ever so slightly. And we're going to fix this up, of course. And the pinky, we're going to have the pinky kind of on an angle back there. So this is kind of what we're going to draw. Okay. So I think just connecting these might be important as well. I know the thumb looks a little off, so I want to fix that right away. Okay. You'll see later the thumb is actually the trickiest part to doing this. So if this is your arm, you might want to add some shading to make it look, you know, somewhat realistic. Just some 3D effect to it is really nice. And you can also do the same over here. Kind of smudge it out just as you wish, just make it look as realistic as possible, of course. This is a quick sketch, so by no means are we doing, you know, several hours of fine art drawing. We're really just gonna try to bring this all together and show you this area specifically. So you can tell I'm just going a little bit quicker on the arm portion as a result, okay? All right, so let's move over to the finger part. The thing with the index finger is that you're not looking at the finger straight on. It is from the side. So what you're typically gonna have is a drawing of the fingernail more so from the side. So you're actually going to see the nail kind of like this, right? That's what you're going to see with the index finger, and you're going to bring it around like that, okay? You might want to have it just a touch curvier like that and bring it down. When you bring the finger down, you might want to bring in some of the skin folds and creases over there. And there's typically one over here as well, and then bring it down. So that's gonna look a lot more realistic if you can do that, right? Okay. A little bit of shading doesn't hurt. Okay. So that's kind of the trick to doing that piece over there. Now, in terms of the middle finger, it is taller than the index finger, but we're gonna have the same pattern in the sense that you're really just gonna see a tiny bit of that nail. In fact, the middle finger is really just gonna be a tiny fraction of, you know, what you see over here, right? If the middle finger is taller than the index, the same lines are going to appear just the ever slightest bit taller than where they appear on the index, okay? In terms of the ring finger is going to be shorter than the middle. And in fact, there's no rule that just because the index is wider and more visible, and this is what it is. The middle, the ring finger doesn't have to be even shorter. You can certainly make it any way you want. In this case, I'll probably just make it just the ever slightest visible portion. So just kind of like that, just the slightest bit, and we'll go down over here, and we'll go down over here. So that would be the ring finger right there. Let's clean that extra line up over there. Okay. And in doing so, I'm just gonna fix this line. And well, the pinky finger has to sit somewhere over here, doesn't it? So in this case, what I'm gonna do is say the pinky finger is actually much more at an angle. So you actually don't really see it just sitting there per se. You actually kind of, in this example, we're gonna say it's kind of tucked away behind, just like that, okay? So if we do that, we might have some lines there on the pinky as well, okay? Now the trickiest part is definitely gonna be this thumb. The thumb is gonna be on an angle, so you're gonna have the nail sitting, you know, like this, and the outer part of the thumb is really gonna come around. The question is, you know, how much so does that thumb really come around? So I would say just like that, maybe bring it up just the slightest touch over here, right? A couple skin folds over here will make this look a lot more realistic. A couple hairs, okay? And bring it back down. The challenge that I see right here is that nail doesn't really look like it's working for me, at least. I feel like we just got to get that nail showing just a little bit differently. It's so tough because it is at a different angle than what you see over here. The reason is because that nail is sometimes, you know, turned a little bit. So you really need to make sure that you show that and represent that. That is the trickiest part of this drawing. That's why so many people have trouble when drawing this position. Hand reaching out with, you know, fingers together and thumbs separate. So anyway, we're just gonna keep practicing. I think this looks a lot better, in my opinion, than it did just 2 seconds before. So I'm starting to kind of see that I kind of like how that looks. I do feel that we should probably just clean up the index finger a bit. It's too thin in my opinion compared to the proportions given with the thumb. I want to just clean this up a bit. So I think the index definitely needs to be a little bit wider, and in doing so, this is going to go wider. We're going to kind of go like that. That's certainly looking a lot better in my opinion. Okay. All right, so we're starting to see this kind of come together now. So how are you doing? Are you drawing this as well? Are you just stopping by for a watch, just trying to learn some best practices? You know, let us know. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. The other thing is that sometimes there's this little indentation that occurs over here when you go like this, right? You kind of have some of these lines. And we want to make sure that we kind of draw some of the knuckle spaces over here. And use your shading to really get those knuckles, you know, appearing and looking as realistic as possible. Follow through with your shading on the finger. If your light source is over here, you can certainly just use something like a 7B to just help this look as realistic as possible, right? There's probably a couple, some of those hairs that exist on the finger, right? So you can kind of put those on there as well. Okay. There's definitely a darker spot right in between the finger, that is the index finger, and the thumb. There's definitely that dark kind of fold that exists and kind of exists like that. So you definitely want to be aware of that as well. And you know, the tricky part is that it really does kind of comes down and you're not really exactly sure where to, you know, put it. Does it stay, oops, let's get rid of that. Does it stay right over here? Does it go higher where the knuckle is? You know, these are all really good questions. If you do the pose yourself, you'll kind of see that it's something that is kind of tricky to do, right? Really kind of tricky to do. So just play around with it, see what works for you, see what you can do, etc. Let's see what we can do over here. My challenge here is that when the thumb sits like this, there tends to be a bit more of a mound in which the thumb is kind of, you know, against some of the skin. So it's kind of hard to really show that and draw that. In fact, I think the thumb should be a little closer to the index because we're drawing this kind of mound over here, right? So if we try to clean this up really quickly, we might actually say, you know, that this should really kind of look a lot more like that, right? I think something was off in my opinion, and I think that was probably it. I don't know if you saw the same, but it was kind of concerning for me as well. So that looks a lot better in my opinion. There tends to be a bit more of a realistic tone to that. So for me, I'm much happier with how this is looking. The thumb being a lot closer to the index finger is definitely going to look a lot better. So that's, you know, starting to come together and kind of look like a little more complete, right? Some last shading, some final shading that can sit over here is always a good thing as well. This piece here can kind of sit just a little more like that. And that wrist, you know, if we're drawing a wrist over here, the wrist is a little thinner than we had it. So I just wanted to erase that piece because the wrist should really be from here to here, just a little bit thinner, right? It really shouldn't be, you know, a thick wrist. I mean, everyone's a little different, right? No problem. But for the most part, you kind of have the proportions. As the wrist is a little bit thinner, you might have more kind of arm muscle over here, right? So it's kind of why I just made that change there as well. Okay. So I think that's pretty much it. We're basically drawing a hand kind of waving, kind of in the distance. You might have a bit of a veiny thing over here. You might have a couple structures or veins kind of sitting over here, right? Nothing wrong with drawing that. And you might also want to just draw a couple hairs kind of on the arm. If you're going to draw a male's arm, you can do that as well, okay? So this is kind of the way I see it coming together. Right? You might want to continue as much or as little as you need to. But for us, we're good. That's basically how you draw a hand waving forward with fingers pointed up. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.